Welcome back, Sleepyheads, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Sleepy Aliens Perspective. I'm your host, H. Lee, and I want to talk about two Black inventors that need a lot of awareness, a lot of support, and some protection as well, because what they are doing is literally it could potentially destroy industries, destroy the systematic control of resources and money in our society. Two Black inventors, one is older, one is younger. Their energy, by my perspective, really exhilarates a sense of hope throughout this planet. It says that we can overcome a lot of destruction that's been caused by capitalism, industrialization, just general societal developments. To actually see someone have an idea, implement it, and to just go into different spaces, show people what's possible, and help communities, I think that says a lot. And it also says that we can free ourselves from having to depend on an unreliable system that was only meant to enslave us into states of submission and dependency. The world, our world, on planet Earth, will never be the same because of atmospheric water generator inventor Moses West, who is he made a machine that turns air into water, clean, drinkable water that has way less chemicals in it than our normal tap water sources. And there's also Julian Brown, the younger man who has found a way to turn plastic into fuel.
Clean drinking water, a natural resource we often take for granted near the Great Lakes. But Moses West knows a water crisis is quietly growing.
Everybody knows we're running out of water.
A problem the retired ranger spent the past 4 years working to eliminate.
All the water that we need it exists right here in the air.
He believed so strongly in that idea. In 2015, West invented an atmospheric water generator, or AWG, a machine that takes in air and turns it into drinking water.
We're at the place now, I think, making 50, 100, 200, 250,000, a million gallons of water at an incredibly low energy consumption. I think cheaper than groundwater by far. Cheaper than desalination.
So far, 12 of these AWGs exist. West planted them in 3 areas, including the Bahamas, Puerto Rico, and Flint, Michigan.
I need to engage with the people here, and I need to show them what this machine does, and they need to understand that it is their machine, and I am here for them.
West says his AWGs are federally approved, and the water quality is also tested by the Colorado Water Authority.
It's clean. It's good enough to drink. No bacteria or anything in it. And the reason that we go through the filtration process, so as soon as you turn it on, it starts making water.
You may be wondering how these atmospheric generators are tied to Wisconsin.
Most of West AWGs were manufactured right here in Manitowoc.
And the people of Manitowoc should be proud. Just 1 unit provides a city with hundreds of gallons of clean water. The best part, it doesn't cost residents a penny. West works with organizations like the Water Rescue Foundation to cover the cost. So far, the response in the community has exceeded his expectations.
And they were very happy that somebody actually cared enough for them to jump over the bureaucracy, come to a private piece of land and do this thing.
Right now, his priority is planting these AWGs in Flint, helping our neighbors here in the Midwest. In Manitowoc, Michelle London, Spectrum News.
I built something called an atmospheric water generator. And an atmospheric water generator is, we all know that there's only 3 sources of water on the earth. We've all learned it in science class. And these 3 sources of water that exist on the earth is in a liquid, it's in a solid, and it's in a gas. And so the easy water that we drink every day, it comes from a surface water like Lake Michigan. What the water is doing is just the planet is getting warmer, so the water's starting to evaporate. And naturally, when the water evaporates, where does it go? It just goes into the air. If you have a glass of water in a room, it evaporates, it's in the air in the room. Many people here don't understand that the water that's in the atmosphere is so plentiful that we can use it. But you see this process every day. In the summer, when you sit at a table and you have a glass on the table and all your friends have a glass of lemonade or iced tea or cold beer or drinks, what you see is those glasses sweat. You see that. You see your air conditioner drip. Well, this is moisture that's being condensed out of the air. And so basically what I do is I've created a machine that does that, but it's on steroids. Condensing the moisture out of the atmosphere, what I've learned over the years, it's a viable, energy efficient source that can operate completely on renewable energy. On the island of Vieques in Puerto Rico, working with my foundation, we supplied enough water for 5,000 people to drink water. We were making water that far exceeded World Health Organization standards, far exceeded EPA standards. Right now what I've been doing is I've been working with the military, and so they have it for their mobility needs. So when the military pulls into an area, one of the problems they had is that when you fly in water in a large military aircraft after a disaster, it takes up the entire plane because water is so heavy. With this technology, what it allows for the user to do is to have a system in place that produces the water as the people need it continuously, and it frees those planes up to do something else. You saw in Katrina, the people were standing out, there were signs they needed water. If they had this machine during Hurricane Katrina, all they would have to do is pull it out, turn it on, and they would be producing water at that spot, at that time. So right now today, in California, in these areas where they're running short of water, this is a technology that has a place and a home right now today. I started doing this in 2012, doing my first steps of trying to tell everybody that the Chicken Little thing, that the sky was falling. And today, we've reached that place that I was talking about then. So I'm working with a town right now in Texas. It's called Sand Branch. This town, Sand Branch, it has absolutely no drinkable water. The water in the wells is even contaminated. So this is one of many towns, thousands of towns around the United States, that have lost their water supply or their water supply is contaminated as the planet warms up. So this technology, operating in a higher temperature, high humidity environment, has the capability to actually produce all of the water that these communities need. When I came up to Chicago, when I moved the process from Texas to here, there's a huge amount of support here for the Ukraine. And people kept asking me, so will this work in the Ukraine? People kept sending me emails, what can you do for the Ukraine? And I said, yeah, well, the machine, it'll work anywhere. I was watching and reading some newscasts. And where was the place where everybody was huddling? They said they were huddling in the basements. And one of the things they always said about the basements was that the basements were dank, damp, and wet. If I put a system in a basement in the Ukraine, it's going to dry the basement out. It's going to prevent disease, mold in the air. It's going to make it extremely dry. The temperature is high enough in the basement to produce water year-round. What I'm interested in is I'm interested in supplying an entire neighborhood with water. I'm interested in making sure that the military will be able to push one of these out of a plane on a parachute to troops in the field. I'm interested in ensuring that the disenfranchised communities around the United States have access to this. And I think I've been one of the only crusaders for that. I have a foundation, it's the Moses West Foundation. All you have to do is just go to the Moses West Foundation, click on the donate link, and donate whatever you would like to donate. And that helps all of these missions that we need to do. It helps train all the people that we need to train. And hopefully it'll help to find that 1,000 people that I can teach to go out in the world to do this as well. That's what the foundation does. Because this technology is a linchpin to sustainability. The 17 tenets of sustainability is set forth by the United Nations. That's the direction they told the whole world to go to. The one thing that they were missing was a sustainable source of water.
What is going on with our water right now? The everyday water that we drink, that we bathe in? Just give us an idea what we're doing to ourselves while we drink and use that water.
Okay, this is not a loaded question anymore because I'm at a stage of my life where I just have to tell the truth.
There you go.
There's no need to lie to anybody anymore, or there's no need to sugarcoat anything. So I'm like that. I don't want to be the messenger of doom, but you need to understand where we're at because you're going to get caught out. So we take from A to Z with our water here in the United States right now. There's something called perfluorinated compounds, PFOAs. We have something called microplastics. And then all the industry that we have on the face of the United States, on the face of the earth, what we've done is we have these chemical plants and we put microchemicals in the air, atomized chemicals in the air. We put Roundup on the ground. We put fertilizer on the ground. We put genetically modified chemicals on plants so that they'll live. And then when it rains, all this goes into the watershed. It goes into the food supply. So from East Coast to West Coast, North to South, it is difficult to find a municipality's water or groundwater today that is not tainted. And all of us sitting in this room right now, if you tested our blood, we probably have chemicals in our bodies that were brought to us from the things we sit on, the things we touch, the things we eat, the showers that we shower in and breathe the air, the water we swim in. We have a serious contamination issue. And not only do we have a contamination issue, what was it this summer? It was hot.
Right.
Globally, it was hot. It was hot in places that don't get hot. In Siberia right now, there's a forest fire raging in Siberia that is bigger than all of the forest fires on the entire planet. And it's raging right now in Siberia. Now, this should get everybody's attention because Siberia sits on top of permafrost, ice that's in the ground.
Okay.
But everything on top of it's on fire.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And all the methane that's under the ground right now is popping out, and that's burning that. It's helping that fire burn. So all of these different things that are happening around the world today affect how our water supply gets to us, how clean it is, how much we have, and right now I would say we're in dire straits, and we need to do something on a massive scale to correct this situation.
Could we use your technology, your innovation in order to then make this nano and microplastic into petroleum and gas?
Yes, absolutely. The machine, the beauty of it, the machine is that it is not limited to the plastic that is put in, right? So typical recycling, for example, you cannot put in plastic that has food residue on it. But as we know, almost all plastic has food residue, oil residue, so they can't recycle most plastic. But this machine, since it's utilizing heat, and heat breaks down everything, you know, it doesn't matter what type of plastic it is, whether it's microplastic, whether it is contaminated with, you know, products from the ocean or dirt. It will go into the machine, it will break it all down into petroleum products, no matter how big it is, no matter how small it is. So microplastics can absolutely go inside of the machine. The plastic is put inside a chamber. It's shredded and dried and put inside this reactor. And this reactor is closed to the air. So there's no oxygen in there. For a fire to exist, you need heat, fuel, and air. But there's no oxygen. So the plastic is put in there. It's close to the air. And microwaves turn on. And then they heat up the plastic. But since it cannot catch on fire, instead, what ends up happening is what's called thermally cracking. So on the molecular level, plastic is made up of really long hydrocarbon chains, which are chains of energy, right? And so those chains end up being broken apart by the heat, right? And then they end up being able to turn into a vapor, right? Almost like if you were to boil water and the steam comes off, right? That steam can now be condensed back into water again. And so the plastic ends up becoming a vapor, a completely new petroleum vapor. It's no longer plastic. And that vapor is then condensed back into oils. And those oils are no longer plastic. They actually become petroleum again, right? And then there are also some other products that come off, like, for example, a permanent vapor product that's similar to natural gas. But that's how the machine works in a nutshell. Here, I have plastic diesel. A diesel alternative I made from plastic waste. And what we have beside me here, we have two Ford 1997 F-250 Power Stroke 7.3s. And we're gonna put my plastic diesel alternative made from plastic waste inside of the first ever F-250 to run off of plastic waste in Chicago, baby. And we're gonna do a side-by-side comparison to see how real diesel does versus my diesel inside of this truck. So Tony, let's go ahead and get this diesel in here. Shot myself.
I got it. Tell us what he's doing.
All right. Plastic diesel is inside of the pail, and we're gonna hook up the fuel hose to it.
He ran the diesel or the truck out of diesel.
Yes,
correct?
It's out of diesel. It's gonna take a minute to start.
All right, everybody, make our way back to the front. If you want to support my mission to take sunlight and turn sunlight into fuel made from plastic waste, you can go to my GoFundMe here. We're looking to raise $16,000 to get all the solar equipment I need. All right, is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Hey, look, I gotta ask. Do you guys think it's gonna run?
Yeah. We know it's gonna run.
All right, Tony, hit it.
You gotta give him the system first.
Yeah. Give it a minute.
You gotta give him the engine to do the engine.
Let's do it.
History right here, the first ever Ford F-250 to run off of plastic waste right here in Chicago, Illinois, baby. Right here. You're gonna see the comparison on how the engines sound, how they rev. And this
Doesn't sound strong to me. Bro. This one about
That boy gave that boy fentanyl. Look at him.
I'm being cooked alive by some damn invisible fire. The Holy Ghost.
boy.
The Holy Ghost is burning me right. I can't even see the fire.
Look at this bloody bollocks, man. I'm in Church's Chicken Deluxe. Right, so about 1 year ago, right, G blew himself up messing about with my plastic into fuel reactor, and I damn near blew my legs off. The blast of fire aimed right down at my feet. I was barefoot, no safety equipment, basketball shorts, like an absolute goofy, but I've learned. Let's see how I look though after a year. So obviously I'm mobile and I'm functional because I've been doing all this work, but the scars are there. And so, you know, I am now a hybrid. I'm black and white. And I burnt myself so much that I became white. And it's interesting because you would think, you know, obviously I'm already quite dark as is. So I didn't think I could even burn. Like, what happens if you burn charcoal? Well, you actually burn it white, and that's what happened here. But, you know, it doesn't hurt or anything. My legs are completely functional and mobile. But yeah, I had huge blisters. I looked like the Elephant Man, right? Huge blisters all around. And now, this is like baby skin. This is brand new skin that came in. So it's actually not scarring, right? Which is interesting. I tell you, the craziest part is when, after the blisters popped, I had that skin there. They had to scrub off the dead skin with the boiling water. They had me under when they did that, but when I woke up, the pain was insane. But we're here, and there you go. 1 year later, still got the scars to prove what I've been through. So, and I know it's like kind of crazy, but I wouldn't have had it any other way because I learned, and I wear my safety equipment, my boots, my fireproof overalls every time now. Heck, sometimes I even wear a helmet, make sure nothing hits my face, you know. And if I hadn't learned that way, I could have been in a far worse accident. But there's so many ways I could easily destroy myself, turning plastic into fuel at a DIY homemade scale. So I learned, and that's what's most important. But also, even if it was a worse injury, I'd be right back at it, guys, because I told you guys I'm here. I'm on a mission. I'm going to get things done. I'm going to solve this problem, or I'm going to at least be a part of the solution to the plastic problem. And that's what it is. I'm fully committed. So Nature Jab, why we put Nature Jab? Because the jab is the strike of the warrior. And I'm here. I'm a warrior for humanity. I'm a warrior for Earth. And I'm a warrior for what's right. And we got to get things done. So there you are. We're almost there. I know that I'm not going to live long. And that's why I put every day, every hour, every minute into building, into growing. Why am I out here working on this plastic into fuel reactor I've been working on for 5 years, since I was 17? Why am I out here in 100-degree weather? Why am I out here despite being falsely accused and reported to the EPA and the IRS? Why am I out here despite weird black helicopters that turn off their radar transponder circling me 6 times at night? Why am I out here sleeping in my van, crazy humidity, mosquitoes, gnats flying in, and yet I still do it? Why am I out here despite having to drive 4 hours every time I want to work on this machine? Because when I was doing it in my parents' backyard, I blew myself up and I had to go to the hospital for 2nd-degree burn surgery. I do this because this is my mission that I've assigned myself to. I do this because I do not fear death. I do not fear suffering or uncomfortability. You know what I fear? I fear allowing an idea of something that may not even exist or happen have enough control over your entire life to where you're not even really living your life. That's the only thing I fear. And thus, I am completely set on what I want to do here, and nothing will steer my course but myself. And I am not a quitter. And now that I've set my mind on this, because I wish to liberate humanity, I wish to liberate humanity from this cycle in which we're bound by waste, in this cycle in which we're bound by division, in this cycle in which we're bound by not knowing ourselves. I wish to free us all from all of this. And now that I'm set on that mission, I'm not giving up. And so it will happen, no matter what. Because you know what? To me, when I'm building something, I expect it to be hard. I expect it to be uncomfortable. I expect it to be difficult. You know why? Because that's the whole point. You have to suffer to grow. You have to feel uncomfortable to attribute value to what you do. So you may see this and you see a piece of metal with certain pieces of metal welded onto it, but I see it for what it really is. I see it because when I see this, I can go back in time to not just putting it together, but the motivation as to why I put it together, the hope, the purpose, the passion, all right here embodied. My soul is within this, just as yours is within anything you do and put your mind to as well. So if you wonder why I'm out here and why I'm not going to do anything else but continue to stay on this mission until I see it through, until I say it's complete, that is why. Because it doesn't matter what anything externally is. There is no threat. There is no uncomfortability. There is no amount of suffering that will steer me from what I wish to do, because that is the life I wish to live. It's inevitable.
Now, despite the excitement and the reality of change that can come into our society, we also have to ask ourselves, what happens to Black inventors in America? What happens to anyone who rattles industries like Big Pharma, the oil trade, the public works system of our natural resources like water, gas, electricity, and even agriculture? There was a time in America when Black people could not even own a patent for their inventions. It was illegal because they weren't considered citizens, and by the dark laws that unofficially govern our Nazi-inspired institutions. I'm just going to keep it real. If you know your history post-World War II, you know what I'm talking about. But these unofficial dark laws didn't even consider Black people to be human. Despite all of that, some of the most famous Black inventors were slaves, either born into it or sold into it. So despite it being ruled illegal in 1857 for a slave's invention to be patented, slaves went on to make society-shifting inventions. Consider the slave Henry Boyd. He ended up purchasing his own freedom, and he developed a bed frame that revolutionized the way the beds were designed, literally up until history today. Because, of course, we can consider all the styles and designs that are available to people. But back then, the bed was standard. It wasn't efficient. But Henry Boyd stepped in and was the first to create wooden rails that connected to the headboard of the bed frame. This made things a lot more sturdy, a lot more efficient, and way more durable. Henry Boyd was so successful that he ended up starting his own business. He had white and Black employees. He had a white business partner. And Henry wasn't stupid. He knew that he couldn't just go to the commission for the patent office and say, hey, I want to get a patent for my invention. He knew that he had to have his white business partner apply for that patent. And that was the only reason that Henry Boyd ever got credit for his work. And I think it's really, and we all love those stories in history when we learn about a white person who was standing up against slavery and racism. And the fact that Henry was able to trust his white business partner is so endearing, very refreshing, and it kind of sweetens, the dark side of his story. But there's the unfortunate case of a slave who is believed to be named Ned. And who knows what Ned's name was supposed to be or really was. Who knows? But Ned went on to create a cotton scraper. And I say cotton kind of weird, I'm a West Virginian. But this cotton scraper significantly improved the harvesting production of cotton. Ultimately, Ned's owner, his slave owner, tried to get a patent in his own name, and his owner's patent application was denied since he could not prove, nor was he believed to be the real inventor of this cotton scraper. And sadly, Ned's owner went on to manufacture and sell his invention even without the patent. So that's just a sad slave tale, but it's also reflective of something that happened to a lot of Black inventors during that time where, whether it was their slave owner or, just a white man in society in general who saw something they were doing and were like, I'm going to take credit for this idea. And there's nothing you can do about it because you're a slave and you're Black and the government doesn't like you. I don't like you. Society doesn't like you. So who are they going to believe, accept, and buy a product from? So that's pretty much how that went down for a lot of people. Now, there is also the case of Benjamin Bradley, who was born into slavery, and he created the first steam engine that was large enough to power a warship. Benjamin went on to work for the U.S. Navy, and I believe at that time he was still a slave, and later he bought his and his family's freedom. So that story has a sweet side to it, but the reality of these slave stories really attests to the long and arduous journey that Black inventors in America have. And I believe this journey is now plagued by industries that have the means to manipulate and obstruct societal progress for the sake of billions. So instead of these institutional blockades, which definitely still exist when it comes to business loans, housing, all that stuff for, Black people and other people of color, that is all still a thing. But, I will admit, since then, hundreds of Black people have gone on to make inventions and get their patents, and things are better than they once were. I also forgot to mention that only 1% of patent holders in the United States are actually Black. And even though, our population is higher and it seems like Black people have done a lot when it comes to being inventors, engineers, and scientists, that percentage is still pretty low. And it's not clear if that's because of institutional barriers or educational barriers. I mean, that could be a whole other episode in general, because we know that in STEM, there's smaller percentages of women and people of color working in STEM. But like I said, that's another story. I'm moving on. So considering how difficult it has been for Black inventors in the past and the challenges that Black inventors are facing, and the general fact that you have Moses West, who is literally turning air into water, and it's free and it's clean, and he can service those communities who are not being protected or serviced by institutions or governments, really, really rattles some cages, especially the fact when it comes to water. We pay for water out of our faucets. We pay for the service of cities and governments cleaning that water, sterilizing it, and making it drinkable, bathable, brush your teethable, whatever it may be. Especially when you consider spring water, all of that stuff. No one owns this land, yet people have claimed ownership over water sources, and no one should have that right. So what Moses West is doing is really, really going to shift some things in our reality. He already is, but it'll be interesting to see how things develop. And then you have Julian Brown. He is literally finally finding a way to turn our plastic waste into something productive. And the fact that he is making oil out of plastic, and we all know how much the oil trade, controls so much of the conflict, or just surrounds so much of the conflict when it comes to globalization and nations and disputes and trade disagreements. And we know what happened in America when, people started just, buying land and drilling oil. It was a dangerous thing for people to suddenly have access to land with oil, because it really exposed them and it made them vulnerable to a lot of nefarious people. Moses West has already had his atmospheric water generators vandalized. Julian Brown has reported that people are trying to get him, and just recently, for over a week, Julian's followers were concerned for his safety, and they thought he went missing.
We are not out of water.
They drained fuel. They added something to the coolant lines. They played with electronics. And that's not typical vandal stuff.
Less than a week after bringing free water to Flint, Moses West says the green machine he designed to do just that was vandalized.
Once they broke into the machine and destroyed the generator, very technical, they knew what they were doing. It wasn't just random vandalism, not at all. They put metal in the fuel system.
West is a military veteran who travels across the country to areas in crisis, bringing a machine he designed, like this one, that literally makes fresh water out of thin air. He put the green machine out for people along Saginaw Street on Thursday and was hoping to make a big impact. He says before the vandalism, they were giving hundreds of people free water every day.
You got to look at, I'm making anywhere from 1,200 to 2,000 gallons of water a day. You're giving away for free. That's a lot of money out of somebody's pocket someplace.
The fact that this man is missing, and before he went missing, he said, "I'm not going to live long," proves and illustrates how if you create a product or a service, and sometimes even an idea that threatens the power structure, they will neutralize you. Now, before I show y'all the last video he posted before he went missing, let me tell you who Julian Brown is. He's a young Atlanta inventor with over 1 million followers on Instagram. He's known for his plastic to fuel invention, also called plastiline. He warned he was under attack before disappearing. If you go to his Instagram page, you can see that all throughout his posts, before he went missing, people always said, man, be careful because people will come looking for you. Julian Brown adds to the list of many different scientists and inventors that have made all type of alternatives to fuel, showing you that all the fuel gangsters, all the oil gangsters, they will melt you. You feel me? They will do you worse than the folks who do you in the streets if you start to threaten their profits. Think about it. If the oil industry has enough influence and power to get the United States federal government to invade a foreign country in the name of getting some oil, you best believe they got the power, the influence to erase, to disappear an individual if they also get in the way of how they get into that oil. Before I play this video, in the comments, can y'all show individuals other examples of people who have created alternatives to fuel that have also been missing?
Everybody, I can't go into too much detail, but there is some very, very odd stuff going on. I'm certainly under attack right now in many different ways, and I just want everybody to know to just kind of have your eyes open. And I have my eyes open, but there's a lot going on. So I'm still working, I'm still building. Nothing's gonna stop that. But I'm just telling you guys right now, be on the lookout because I'm under attack.
Goes a clip of Mr. Julian in action. And when you're watching it, think to yourself, who would see this as a threat and want him to be erased? I've watched a lot of Criminal Minds. Who has the motive? Who would have a motive?
He always wants to ask me, how much per gallon does it take to take plastic waste and turn it into a gallon of my plastiline, a gasoline alternative made from plastic waste? Well, let me tell you what it's going to be. $0 per gallon. How? Because starting next month, I'm going to begin the journey of running this complete machine completely off of solar. I will take the sunlight and harness the rays of the sun at a cost of $0 per kilowatt to operate the world's first ever handmade continuous microwave pyrolysis reactor to convert plastic waste, mixed, sorted, clean, dirty, whatever. Take that plastic waste out the ocean, out the landfills, out the waste stream, and turn it into fuel. $0 a gallon. So are you ready? Are you with me on this journey? Hey Mom, tell those hackers I'm back.
No, you better not say that, boy.
Oh.
Hey guys, I am here with Nature Jab. I'm Nia Brown, and I want to extend warm greetings to you on behalf of my husband and our entire family. We are so very thankful for you, and I want to speak to you from my heart as a mother. Thank you abundantly for the outpouring of support and concern that you had for our son. And I say our son because I know to the world he is Nature Jab, but to me, he's my son. He's Julian Alexander. And you are an amazing tribe of supporters. When you thought he was missing, the support that you gave was just phenomenal. It really blew my mind. But because we saw without any doubt, you made it abundantly clear that Julian is important to you. As a family, we think it's important that you understand what happened. First of all, Julian was never missing. He was not suicidal. He was not in some institution or so many of the other things that we have heard. But here is the truth. Julian has received terroristic death threats, cryptic threats. He has received hacking in ways that have just been incredibly insane. People who are obsessed with him, who hate him, who ultimately want to distract him from his purpose and his mission and to destroy him. But I tell you what, when we consulted his cybersecurity team and our, team of advisors for security, they all gave him the same advice. Stand down, lay low, and do not post anything to any platform at all. And that's what we did. And then Meta gave the same advice. They urged him not to post anything because ultimately they wanted to investigate what was happening. Moving forward, what Jab realized is it would be a great idea to make sure you can stay connected to him, because in that space, it really troubled him that he could not tell you himself that he was safe.
Right.
So that's the purpose of this page. It's a way for you to stay connected to us.
Yep.
Now, don't get it twisted. We know that the hackers and haters will still come to this page too. And that's why we need your help. If you see them post something inappropriate, suspicious, crazy, let us know. Take screenshots. We might need that for proof.
Evidence.
For not only this page, but Nature Jab.
Yes.
What's happened is they have unleashed Mama Bear. And I stand ready, as does all of my family, to protect Julian. And you've already demonstrated that you feel that way too. If you're a believer, keep praying. If you have gifts and talents and resources and skills that can help, let us know. Thank you, and God bless you all.
And this page is the official safe haven if anything happens to Nature Jab. So thank you guys so much. So I'm sure you guys are wondering, what does it feel like to literally have the whole world looking for you and thinking you're missing? And to be honest, on one end, I'm super grateful, super humble. It's crazy. But on the other end, I'm like, do I even deserve that? Because you see, I'm just a human just like all of you. At least I think so. And, people go missing, people die every day. Why do I deserve this amount of outreach over just anybody else? And I know, of course, I'm doing something inspiring to millions of people around the world. But, we all deserve a certain level of human-to-human respect and support, right? But then at the same time, like that kid said from The Incredibles, if everybody's special, then nobody's special, right? So, I had no idea this was even going to happen. I was simply following security protocols and being strategic, trying to get ahead of the enemy I didn't know. And, silence, is no information. And silence is so strong. One of the laws of power, And so Meta told me I needed to wait 24 hours to 2 weeks, and I was just following the protocol. As a matter of fact, all this really started popping off. I was working on the machine in Alabama. My dad was there watching me, making sure I was safe, and then he came out in the middle of me working on the machine. He told me, hey, I got 5 calls from my family friends back to back telling me, asking me, are you safe? Because they're saying you're missing. And I'm like, huh. And he was like, well, I just told him I'm right here with him right now. And then all of a sudden, I got a call from my mom saying the Daily Mail reached out to her, asking her to make a statement. And I'm like, she was asking me what should she tell them. And I'm like, just tell them I'm alive, I'm fine. But that's it, because we're trying to keep everything under wraps, airtight. And, the story changes. They try to say that she called them. They called her. You know how the news outlets do. But either way, I'm here. And I'm still on the mission. And you know what? With or without the whole world's support, I'm grateful. I'm humble. I'm hardworking. And I will always be that way. It could be 2 million followers or 200 million followers. I will always be goal-oriented, mission-oriented. And I'll always be me. Right here in my kitchen by myself eating my ginger. That's what it is. But thank you all so much. Seriously. I love.
So again, I asked, because I've talked about what happens to whistleblowers in our society. They turn up what believes to be ruled as self-deletion. And the circumstances are always mysterious. And it's always after they start speaking up about something. And a lot of them are connected to big industries. If whistleblowers aren't safe, what do you think happens to inventors? These inventors who are challenging the status quo and the pockets of millionaires and billionaires on this planet. And I have an example, which is he's not an inventor, but In a way he is, because he did have this herbal concoction that he did learn from somebody else, but I think he still studied these things and he still found the best combinations for use. And I'm talking about the Honduran herbalist, healer, and teacher Alfredo Bowman, also known as Dr. Sebi. And like I said, Dr. Sebi wasn't an inventor by nature, but he did create some amazing herbal remedies, and he helped dozens of individuals overcome AIDS, lupus, cancer, hepatitis, and diabetes. Dr. Sebi was all about teaching people how to eat foods that helped electrify our electric bodies. And he believed that a lot of diseases and disorders were caused by essentially builds-up of mold within the body that decreased the electricity within our cells, that decreased our healing potential. And so he really promoted this electric diet, the alkaline diet, that could essentially help recharge and regenerate our bodies and clear out a lot of that mold, a lot of the gunk that was essentially depleting us.
I'm not a preacher. I would never be a preacher. I told that to my mother. She wanted me to be the preacher. I said, no, 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 no. That would be the last thing that I would consider. She said, why? I said, because I want to live truth. Even if it kills me, I'm going to live truth. And truth is, the Bible says that the herbs are for the healing of the nations. But the preacher, when he gets sick, he will get a chemical. What is the message he's sending to God? Come on, let's be truthful. Let us be truthful today. If never again in our life, let us be that today. Why do we go to see the doctor to give us a chemical when the Bible says the herbs are for the healing? Why do we go? Well, you're going to soon find out. That's what affected me then, and probably affecting me now. To a great degree. More than I would ever realize. Because remember, I want to go to the blackboard. What happened between hair and hair? A lot happened. You see, when we were hair, without the mathematics, without the ABC, without the sciences, when we were hair, we had something to our advantage that we no longer have here. We are blind hair. Hair we weren't. We were seeing. Why? Because God provided us with everything we needed here. And none of it was comfrey or rice and beans. There were no tofu. There were no soy there. There were no cows. And there were no hogs, no chicken. There were no flour. Those things didn't come from Africa. You see rice and beans and flour and cheese and meat and the starch that you eat, they all came from right here, from a laboratory. Yeah. No. Now, for us to eat, you have to have in your big skull the understanding of biochemistry. But when we were here, we didn't have to know anything about biochemistry. Why? Because God doesn't make poisons. You see, God doesn't make carrots. Well, let me put it here. Stop the garbage.
And so that's how he saw it. But to Big Pharma, they're like, no, this man is not a doctor. He is not healing people. He cannot be making these claims. And Dr. Sebi never officially made these claims. So in 1987, New York Attorney General Robert Abrams had Dr. Sebi arrested for practicing medicine without a license and making fraudulent medical claims. Now, this trial was Supreme Court status, and ultimately Dr. Sebi was acquitted on both charges because he had 72 witnesses provide documentation that he had helped them overcome these various diseases, even though he did not ever mean to intentionally claim that he could cure these things. But the fact that this man was able to defend himself in Supreme Court, that he had 72 witnesses provide documentation saying that he helped them, really, really shattered the way people looked at Western medicine and big pharma in general. So of course, Dr. Sebi was, battling the prosecutors of New York and the attorney general, but ultimately he was battling big pharma, which you better believe they were like, you better prosecute this man right now and shut this down so people don't go believing him, buying his herbal remedies, or looking into what he's accomplished. And when you think about big pharma, it's a much more powerful and wealthy entity that's been tampering with legislation since the Second Industrial Revolution in the 1800s and early 1900s. I mean, consider Pfizer. It's one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the US, and it was founded in 1849, right in that Second Industrial Revolution period. What is tragic about Dr. Sebi's case is that this man who had helped more than 72 people overcome major diseases passed away from pneumonia while he was in Honduran police custody for these fraudulent money laundering charges. And then if you want to look into the story, it's hard to get a lot of information about it, but basically Dr. Sebi had like $34,000 in cash on him when he was traveling through an airport, and then that's when these people are like, oh, you're money laundering. Not maybe this man just has a lot of cash, and a lot of people use straight up cash to buy property, houses, whatever it may be, cars. Like these type of transactions happen every day, but Dr. Sebi had become a target since 1987. And he had went on to help a lot of people in between that time. So you better believe that Big Pharma was looking for any way to trap this man, to slow down this man. But the sad part about this is that you have this man who has cured people of major diseases, and yet he passes away from pneumonia. You want us to believe that. That's just ridiculous to me. And what's even worse is that they were doing this to an 82-year-old man. Dr. Sebi was an old man. They couldn't just let him live his life and have this legacy, because even when I bring Dr. Sebi up to people, they don't know who he is. A lot of people don't know who he is. A lot of people don't know that this man won a Supreme Court case proving that he did cure people of AIDS and lupus and cancer. A lot of people don't know that. But, the dark forces just had to find a way to trap him. And what's crazy to me is that I've lost count of the amount of celebrities and public figures who have passed away from pneumonia. While in my regular life, I don't know anyone who's had that. I think that's very telling, very interesting. From what I heard in a documentary that I watched from Dr. Sebi's actual children, because this man was a bit of a rolling stone, if you know what I mean. He had a lot of kids, different women, but apparently while he was in, I don't know if it was jail or if they consider it straight up prison or not, in Honduras, basically Dr. Sebi was refusing to eat. He thought that they were trying to poison him. And I believe he told his kids that he wasn't going to eat. So who knows what really happened to this man? But he challenged the system, and despite him being 82 years old, the system still found a way to take him out, to suppress him. So if that kind of systematic madness could happen to an elderly herbalist healer, what could happen to Moses or Julian? Are you kidding? Free water? You don't have to pay almost $4. Well, some people are paying almost $4 a gallon in America for gas right now. So I wanted to make this episode because I feel like it's so important that we support Moses West and Julian Brown. We have to make them household names. Let's make them so famous that they become as untouchable as possible. because they are really doing a lot for Earth, humans, and Black history. And I, for one, am so inspired by Moses and Julian. And honestly, I think it really reminds us all that, one, the system, the institutions, our government, they were designed to contain us, not uplift us, not better us. I think that's so blatantly obvious now to a lot of people, but, you know, I'm a Black woman. That's been obvious to me since I was a child. Because think about it. If institutions and governments were all for the kind of change that Moses and Julian are bringing into our society, you better believe that nations and top organizations would be funding Moses and Julian. But no, Moses relies on donations, and Julian truly believes that his life is in danger. So I encourage anyone who watches this video to visit Moses's foundation website. I think several months ago, I had actually emailed the foundation to try to get an interview with Moses, but he only goes on major platforms. And it is what it is. But one day, I will be that major platform, and, you know, who knows? He'll be really old and we'll have an interview, and I'll mention how I reached out back in 2025. Who knows? But I do encourage people to go into Moses's website, learn about his projects, his organization, donate, and at least you know you're donating and you can trust that someone is actually implementing good things with the money that you're donating. Because it's so sad, but we have all of these really big nonprofits and people who have big salaries attached to these nonprofits. So you donate, sometimes you don't really know where your money's going, right? But it's nice to see organizations like this and projects like this where, yes, you can actually tell, oh, he just built another device and he's sending it to Africa, or he's, you know, bringing it to India. You just never know. But yeah, Moses West is he's truly worth any time, energy, and money you can send his way. And you can also follow Julian Brown. I'm going to link any of his social links that I can find below. I don't know if this man has a website, but I'm sure you can find a way to send him money, Cash App him, whatever it may be. But Sleepyheads, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I hope you found it informative. I hope you truly, truly go on to support Moses and Julian. If you are somebody out there with an idea or invention, I encourage you to persist and prevail against these dark forces that do not want us to be educated, liberated, and self-sufficient. And I think the more of us who take that path in life, the weaker the system becomes and the more power we gain over it. But I'm just going to leave it there, Sleepyheads. I hope you have a great night, and I will talk to you soon.